Hello and welcome to this lecture on professionalism. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about kind of professionalism, how to communicate with others, building your professional self and finding a mentor, and then certainly kind of maybe why we're doing that or the advantages of doing that. So we've talked a little bit about how we present ourselves kind of through technological avenues like Facebook, email, kind of on a personal web page, whatever. I want you to be thinking about kind of all of your contacts with faculty and even your peers and in your community, but through technology, but also in class, on campus, at work, in your community. I think one thing from kind of being a faculty member here I've kind of seen is that students, I don't think, realize how much of their interaction with faculty members is kind of noted. And again, that's when you come in for an advising appointment, when you email, when you're talking to your peers in the classroom, when you're talking in the class, or when you're just kind of having sidebar conversations. Kind of all of that behavior is kind of noted. And in terms of instructors, the reason why that's maybe important to be thinking about is that those are individuals that you may be asking for letters of recommendation for. And so it's really important for you to kind of be thinking about kind of how those interactions come off. Now, you may have a disagreement with a peer or a faculty member, or you might want to share something exciting with a peer or a faculty member, and I think that's all good, but thinking about how that comes out and what avenue that's stated and how you address that. So I guess that's where I wanted to kind of start, was thinking about how you present yourself. Recently talking to a student who, very strong student, she's got a lot to offer. She kind of is known for kind of stating it like it is and stating her opinion. And some of the feedback I gave to her is I felt like I needed to let her know that I think that is a strength that she's able to do that. My advice was that she start thinking about how to do that in a more tactful manner. Because when you get out there in the real world, and when you get out there at your field placements or in the real world, which is often the real world, then you need to be thinking about how that presentation is going to come off. How's that going to be received by a client? How's that going to be received by a coworker or a supervisor? And again, I think it's important that we self-advocate, that we advocate for our clients, we advocate maybe for our colleagues and peers in an agency, but it's the way we do it. And it's the words we use and thinking kind of how to do that. Now, again, some students say, well, that's kind of not my style. Well, in terms of being successful, at least what I've seen professionally, is that that's an important thing to kind of think about. And so if you're not in a place to kind of, have a kind of critical, helpful, constructive conversation with whomever it is, whether it be a peer or a supervisor or a client, then perhaps then is not the time to address the issue. And kind of letting things settle for you and having a place to process that and figuring out when to kind of bring that up. So again, I'm kind of giving you this feedback because this is something that I've kind of experienced professionally in terms of my own professional development, kind of seeing what works best for me. And it's certainly when I am in a cool, calm, collected place and coming from a thoughtful presentation of the issue and the ideas, it's much better received than just kind of coming from a place of gut feeling, so to speak. So I guess I start there, again, thinking about your interactions and how to develop this professional sense. How you are with your friends and your family may be one thing, but it's important that you start to develop this professionalism, how you are in the workplace. Really close friends of ours, growing up, her dad was extremely quiet, like never said anything. But he was also my dentist. So when I would go to see him as a dentist, he was like the chattiest person. He was funny and outgoing. And then I'd see him, and our family spent a lot of time together, so I saw him a lot. And I'm like, he was like two very different people kind of personally, kind of with family and friends than he was professionally. And, sometimes that kind of happens for people. They have these kind of two selves that way. Oftentimes we as a profession in social work are talking about kind of melding that person and personal self and professional self. And I think that's important to think about doing. But again, thinking about that professionalism is really important to do. So, a couple things that I have found helpful in terms of my professional development was developing a relationship with a mentor. And for those that kind of think about what a mentor is, um, this is kind of how I'm defining what a mentor is a professional relationship, something that develops over time. I have experienced how helpful it is to be an example of maybe what I hope to do when I grow up type thing, a place of encouragement, a place to have discussions, maybe it's a place to gain supervision, and it really is helpful in kind of having an idea of, okay, what are the expectations in this profession? How do I get to where that person is? What was their journey? What degree do I need? What hoops do I need to jump through? And so that idea of a mentor, I think, is really important to think about. What does that person look like? Perhaps it's someone who shares a common interest with you. Perhaps it shares a common practice with you in terms of what they're doing in terms of their practice and what you hope to be doing in terms of your practice in the future. So finding, a faculty member, a field instructor, a professional that has maybe a style that you like or an area of practice that you wish to be in, and make time to connect with this person, setting up maybe an office hour or visiting with them, seeing them outside of class, maybe before or after, kind of whatever's convenient with that person. And finding out what their journey was. How did they get to that place? What got them there? Certainly keeping in touch with that person. I really enjoy hearing from my former students, kind of where they are, once they've graduated. Just saw actually 2 alumni this week. And it's great to see, one was here for grad school and another one was just stopping by to say hi and telling me how well they're doing with their job. That's helpful because that person, the one that stopped by telling me about their job, they were actually letting me know that they're going to plan to go to grad school kind of next year. So, that's something that, because I've stayed in touch with that person, that's something I'd be happy to kind of write a letter of recommendation and kind of know a little bit about what they're doing and what they did here, but also what they're doing outside of here. I also will note in terms of, I'll kind of say that later, sorry. So, and knowing that this all takes time to develop, this isn't something that just kind of happens overnight. So why do this? Why is it important to have a mentorship? I think personally and professionally, I have found it helpful in terms of my professional development and growth to kind of know where I'm going and to kind of have a path and be guided by that. I didn't pursue a path that my parents had gone through or any family or friends had gone through, so I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to get there. I was the first in my family to go to grad school. My father had a bachelor's degree, so I knew a little bit about getting myself to college, but the grad school thing, I didn't know what that entailed, so it was really helpful to talk to somebody about, okay, what would this look like? How does the application process go? What do you know about this? Once I get that degree, what does that look like? How long does that usually take to get there? What types of things would I be doing once I got the degree? So those are all helpful things to kind of gain, especially if you don't have somebody that that went through that. That mentor can do that for you. That mentor can also be, so they can kind of guide you through the process, but they can also be a reference or a recommendation from you. Many of our students are graduating, and I may have had them in a class, but I didn't make any contact with them kind of outside of class. I had no idea what they were doing volunteer-wise or work-wise. And so when somebody calls me and says, oh, hey, Susie said that you give her be a reference for her, I'm like, oh, Susie, yeah, when did I have her? And so to be caught off guard in terms of, I might not have anything thoughtful prepared about who Susie is or when I even had her, and I kind of sound silly when I say, oh, I don't even remember when I had her in class or what class I had her in. And you have to remember, as instructors, we're teaching many classes. I know this is often to say, I often remember students' names, but I don't remember when I had you in class. Was that fall or spring of 2010? And so that's something that's really helpful if that person makes a request in advance and says, hey, I'm applying for this job and I am going to have the person contact you. Here's a little bit about me. It's great when they kind of contact you in person, at least via phone if you can't do in person, and then certainly via email. And it's helpful to provide that person with a little bit of information, what you've been doing since you graduated, maybe your resume, maybe a little bit about what you're applying for, what class you had them for, maybe other areas that you worked with them that they might have forgotten about, like, oh, I also did an independent study with you. You know, you're not trying to insult that person. They may remember that, but that helps kind of jog their memory. Oh, I did that independent study with you in the fall of 2010, not the spring of 2011. So that you're kind of on the same page that way when you're providing that as a reference. So, because you may have noted that in your resume, and if it sounds different, it might look funny to the employer or to the grad school. So, so again, a mentor can be really helpful in terms of a reference and also a letter of recommendation. So, when you are asking them for a reference, I think it's helpful if you give them some advance notice and give a couple weeks notice in terms of, okay, I'm applying for this job, this is kind of where things are, you know, this is, again, kind of the background, this is how, you know, we met in these classes, whatnot. Then in terms of a letter of recommendation, I often recommend a little bit more lag time, you know, 2 to 4 weeks at least. I really recommend 4 weeks to complete. It's amazing how much work kind of comes up, especially at different times of year. If a student asks me for a letter of recommendation in August, I could probably knock that out in less than 2 weeks. If a student asks me for a letter of recommendation, say November, December, I am in the middle of finishing classes. I'm probably in the midst of grading serious papers, and I probably have had at least 5 to 10 other people ask me for a letter of recommendation. So spitting that out in 2 weeks, probably not going to happen. So being respectful of that way, certainly providing them the forms that they need to submit, whether it be online or via hard copy, making sure they have your contact information, especially your phone number and your updated email, so that if they have a question, they can email you or call you. So I think it's really helpful that students, you know, again, I appreciate kind of meeting with them in person or via phone, and kind of them scheduling that with me, and then having a follow-up where they're sending me an email and giving me their name, giving me their contact information, giving me kind of what I need to do specifically. Oh, for this school I need this, for this school I need this, and for this school I need this. And then also reminding me when I had them in classes for, and maybe other projects that we did together. I think that's really helpful to kind of have that. I also think, again, a personal statement or a resume is great because I can enhance, you know, my letter if I kind of know that. Waiving your request to see the letter is kind of standard practice. That's something that I was kind of always taught. It really assures the recipient of the recommendation that the letter is really candid. And some students, if you're concerned about whether or not that person can write you a good letter, then you should ask that question. It's not just, can you write me a letter of recommendation? It's, can you write me a good letter of recommendation? Because there's some students I can't write a good letter of recommendation. I can write a decent one. I can write an excellent one for some. I can write an okay one for others. You know, so it's important that as you're seeking out letters of recommendation, that person's really able to highlight your skills. You know, if I had a student, again, in this course, I could probably write a letter of recommendation, a decent one. I could write a better one if I had even methods one and, you know, practice course preparing for field. That's a writing intensive course where we practice the skills of engagement and communication and writing a social history and a process recording. I can talk more about the skills that you would have out there as a social worker. And so I'm going to be able to write you a better letter of recommendation if I had you kind of in those classes. So consider that. Consider what the instructor had you in terms of a class. Was it a rigorous class? Was it an easy class? You know, can they note your skills? Did you participate at all in their class? If you didn't say a word in their whole class, it's going to be hard to write a letter of recommendation, right? So thinking about that, you know, having a serious conversation with some faculty members about kind of what type of things can they highlight, and then figuring out which people you want to ask them for a letter of recommendation. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. I'll end that with I'm sorry if it's feeling negative, but I will end that with I do know from being with several colleagues that they do not like just getting an email, because that's what it is nowadays, from, random university, that so-and-so, Susie, has requested a letter of recommendation, and here's the link, and have no knowledge of Susie. Susie never contacted me, she never called me, she never emailed me, she just sent me the request. It's rude to do, and a lot of faculty members don't appreciate it. Now, back in the day, we used to get something in our mailboxes like a hard copy paper. Now we're getting emails, so you don't even have to come to the department and drop anything off. You just, have it sent via email. So again, I think it's really important that if you want a good letter, you want to ensure you're getting a good letter, that you are reaching out to that recommender before you kind of do the paperwork and have the paperwork sent to them. So that's kind of the thoughts on recommendations. I do want to kind of just highlight here, I realize some of you guys, a majority of you guys are social work majors. We do have a couple of you that are kind of other majors. It's really important that you know some of the major professional organizations that your major kind of looks at. National Association of Social Workers is one, Council of Social Work Education, Baccalaureate Program Directors, Institute for Social Work Research, Association of Social Work Boards, Maryland Social Work Board. These are some really good websites, and they are in the readings for this week, and I do encourage you to kind of bookmark some of these, if you're a social work major, and if you're not, finding the ones that work in your major. So I think it's really helpful that you kind of know what those are. Also in the readings, I should have noted, there is a little bit of asking for a letter of recommendation, kind of what I just talked about, but then also this what we call advanced standing recommendation for students that have completed their bachelor's degree in social work. They can apply for what's called advanced standing for their master's degree in social work. And students kind of who are applying for advanced standing have a high GPA advanced standing program, so looking for, some of them are looking for a 3.5 or higher, some are looking for a 3.0 and higher. They are looking for students who have performed extremely well in their field placements and illustrated professionalism, as I go back to my first point in this lecture, professionalism throughout their career, in their classes, in their time here at UMBC. So that is, and if they kind of are meeting those requirements, then they can apply for what's called advanced standing, get a letter of recommendation from the faculty, the social work faculty here, and then apply for advanced standing. And what that allows them to do is to apply their bachelor's field placement, so their second year field placement, to meet for the first year of the MSW program, which basically means instead of the MSW program taking 2 years to complete, it takes 1 year to complete. This is an extensive fast-track program. Students really need to be thinking about what that does for them in terms of, I realize it's the cost benefit for them. However, it is a really intense program, and so kind of thinking about that. And knowing too that you're going to be losing out on another field placement, which I really do value, and certainly did value in my grad school. So that's something to kind of be thinking about. So that information is also posted on the in the readings for this week. Again, if you're a social work major. So a couple of things to kind of think about that are in the readings for this week too are scholarships. Speaking from a person who has a little bit of debt coming out of grad school, and of course married someone who also has a little bit of debt coming out of school. So really thinking about doing the best you can to use some of the scholarships that are out there. There's extensive, these are kind of just a few, but I've noted them in the readings tab. So there's lots of scholarship opportunities. There's scholarship opportunities for the social work majors. There's scholarship opportunities if you're a shade grade student. There's scholarship opportunities like Title 14. So these are programs that you should, and MARE for the UMBC. So these are programs that you should be aware of and that you should just kind of apply for. There's many just local scholarships, kind of many representatives and senators kind of have their own little scholarship money, and if you are a resident in those areas, you can apply for scholarship money. And in terms of students that are kind of in the helping profession, in social work, have a plan to go in and work with, um, disadvantaged individuals, then oftentimes these scholarships are set up for people who are planning to be helpers. And so I think it's a nice match, and oftentimes we do see a lot of our social work students kind of winning some of these scholarships. So do think about that. Kind of a lead in to what I was just talking about before about different organizations. I think you should be aware of the organizations that are kind of locally here and kind of throughout NIH, National Institutes of Health, kind of in Bethesda. Annapolis is another huge area kind of for advocacy. So be aware of some of the local organizations that you could get involved in and do research opportunities, perhaps summer internships at these different sites. ERCAD is the Undergraduate Research Creative Achievement Day up at main campus, and they had just a display of amazing kind of talent and scholarship from our students. And so that's something to kind of consider. Reaching out to a faculty member that is doing research in an area of interest for you and kind of what the opportunities are. The Shriver Center is located both main campus and at Shady Grove and has some amazing internship and research opportunities for students, whether it be in the summer or during the academic year, and is something that should be considered too. So again, all of these are in the readings for this week. I know there's a lot of readings actually. It's not meant for you to read all of them. Well, some of them are. Like, I do recommend if you're thinking about going to grad school, read the recommendation letter one. But the idea is, you don't have to read all the scholarships that I kind of posted there. But if you're interested in them, you might want to consider using some of them as resources. The other aspect of the readings, which are included, are kind of about the mentors and about some of the organizations that are specific to kind of social work. So do spend some time kind of checking those out and seeing what kind of works. Some of those you might just kind of bookmark for future reference. That concludes this lecture. Thank you so much and have a good day.